The massive alien warship Shadowfang moved through the darkness of space like a metal predator hunting its prey. Inside the ship's main briefing room, dozens of alien soldiers gathered around glowing tables covered with maps and data screens. The air buzzed with excited chatter in several different alien languages. Commander Vextal stood at the front of the room, his reptilian scales gleaming under the bright lights. His yellow eyes scanned the mixed group of warriors before him. There were tall, insect-like creatures with 4 arms and clicking mandibles. Energy beings that looked like living flames floated near the ceiling. Massive rock-like aliens sat on reinforced chairs that groaned under their weight. Silence, Vextal hissed, and the room fell quiet. Today we discuss our next target, a human colony world called New Busan. The commander activated a holographic display showing a green and blue planet. Intelligence reports indicate this world has roughly 50,000 human civilians and minimal military presence. Our sources suggest only one company of soldiers guards the entire colony. A chorus of laughter erupted from the assembled troops. The insectoid warriors clicked their mandibles in amusement. The energy beings flickered brighter, their version of laughter. Even the stone-like creatures rumbled with deep chuckles. "One company," wheezed Grixton, a 4-armed insectoid lieutenant. "We have brought enough firepower to level a dozen military bases. This will be easier than crushing larvae." Vextal raised a clawed hand for attention. "Do not underestimate any enemy, no matter how weak they appear. Let us review what we know about human military capabilities." The commander touched his datapad, and new images appeared on the display. Pictures of human soldiers in various uniforms filled the screen. To the aliens, they looked small and fragile compared to their own mighty forms. Humans average 1.7 meters in height, Vextal read from his notes. They have no natural armor, no claws, no enhanced strength. Their weapons are primitive chemical projectiles. Their technology is centuries behind our own. They look like hairless monkeys, snorted Thokamar, a massive stone warrior whose voice sounded like grinding rocks. How did such weak creatures even develop space travel? Vextal scrolled through more data. That is an interesting question. According to our intelligence files, humans compensate for their physical weakness with elaborate stories about their military prowess. They create myths about impossible feats to boost morale among their troops. The display changed to show human military records and news reports. Vextal began reading from various files, his voice dripping with mockery. "Listen to this tale," he said, pointing to one report. "They claim a soldier named Park Jinho single-handedly held off an entire enemy regiment for 3 days and nights. According to the story, he was wounded multiple times but refused to retreat from his position." The room exploded with laughter again. Several aliens doubled over, clutching their sides or whatever passed 4 sides in their species. 3 days, gasped Zixera, an energy being whose form flickered with amusement. "One of our warriors could eliminate a human regiment in 3 minutes. Vextal continued reading. "Here is another fantastic tale. A medic named Li Dongyun supposedly fought for 18 hours straight while suffering from what humans call mortal wounds. The report claims he saved over 30 soldiers during this time. 18 hours with mortal wounds." Thokamar's rocky face cracked into what might have been a grin. If the wounds were truly mortal, he would be dead. These humans do not understand the meaning of their own words. The commander found another file and displayed it for all to see. "This story is my personal favorite. A logistics officer named Kim Min-soo allegedly carried wounded soldiers on his back for 30 miles through enemy territory. The report says he made 6 trips, saving 18 soldiers total." Grixton's mandibles clicked rapidly. 30 miles. With wounded soldiers, our pack animals could not manage such a feat. These humans have vivid imaginations. Vextal nodded, and continued scrolling through the files. Every human military unit has dozens of these impossible stories. They speak of soldiers who fight without fear, who feel no pain, who accomplish miraculous feats through determination alone. Determination. Zixara's energy form pulsed with bright colors. Determination does not stop bullets. Determination does not heal wounds. Determination does not grant superhuman strength. "Exactly my point," Vextal said. "These stories serve only to make weak humans feel better about their limitations. They create fictional heroes to inspire their actual soldiers, who are far less impressive." The commander switched to tactical displays, showing the New Busan colony. "Our target is defended by approximately 100 human soldiers led by someone called Captain Kong Giwan. Intelligence suggests this captain has no significant combat experience." 100 soldiers. Thokmar's rumbling laugh shook the entire room. "We have brought 800 of the finest warriors from across the galaxy. The odds are 8 to 1 in our favor." "The odds are much better than that," Vextal corrected. "Remember, we possess superior technology, training, and physical capabilities. Each of our warriors is worth at least 10 humans in combat. The real odds are closer to 80 to 1. An insectoid warrior raised one of his 4 arms. "Commander, what if the humans have orbital defenses or hidden weapons?" Vextal shook his head. Our long-range scans show only basic defensive systems. A few plasma cannons, some missile batteries, standard communications equipment, nothing that can threaten our ships or ground forces. What about reinforcements? Asked another alien. Could other human military units respond to a distress call? The nearest human military base is over 50 light-years away, Vextal replied. Even if they received a distress signal immediately, it would take weeks for any reinforcements to arrive. We will complete our mission and depart long before help can reach the colony. Zixera floated closer to the display. Commander, why are we attacking this particular world? It seems to have little strategic value. Vextal's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. New Busan serves as a major agricultural center for this sector. Capturing it will disrupt human food supplies to several nearby systems. More importantly, it will demonstrate to other human colonies that resistance is futile. A wise strategy, Grixton agreed. Fear is often more effective than firepower. The commander touched his datapad again, and the display showed detailed battle plans. We will approach the planet in 3 waves. The first wave will eliminate orbital defenses and establish space superiority. The second wave will deploy ground forces at key locations around the colony. The third wave will serve as reserves if needed. If needed, Thokamar rumbled with amusement. Against 100 humans. We could conquer this world with a single squad, perhaps Vextal said, but overconfidence has destroyed many armies. We will use overwhelming force to ensure swift victory with minimal casualties on our side. An energy being near the back of the room spoke up. Commander, what should we do with the human civilians? Standard protocol, Vextal answered. Those who surrender will be relocated to work camps. Those who resist will be eliminated. The colony's infrastructure will be preserved for our own use. The briefing continued for another hour as the aliens discussed specific tactics and assignments. Throughout the discussion, they frequently mocked the human stories they had heard, treating them as entertainment rather than intelligence. As the meeting concluded, the alien warriors filed out of the briefing room, chattering excitedly about their upcoming easy victory. None of them noticed the small human data chip that had been secretly recording their every word, planted by an intelligence agent who had infiltrated their ship months earlier. The chip contained everything the aliens had said about human myths and legends. Soon, that information would reach the defenders of New Busan, giving them valuable insight into their enemies' expectations and attitudes. Commander Vextal remained in the briefing room after his troops departed, studying the tactical displays. One final time, he felt confident about the upcoming battle. How could creatures who needed fictional stories to feel brave pose any real threat to professional warriors? Within hours, he would learn the answer to that question in the most terrifying way possible. The colony of New Busan stretched across a wide valley, surrounded by rolling hills covered in golden wheat fields. The morning sun cast long shadows across the settlement as farmers began their daily work. Children played in the streets while their parents prepared for another peaceful day. Captain Kang Giwan stood on the observation deck of the colony's main administrative building, watching the sunrise through his binoculars. At 35 years old, he had spent most of his military career on quiet border worlds like this one. His weathered face showed the lines of someone who had seen enough to know that peace never lasted forever. Captain, called Sergeant Lee Minho from behind him, we're receiving some strange signals from the outer sensor array. Lieutenant Park Sujin thinks you should take a look. Kong lowered his binoculars and followed the sergeant to the communications center. The room buzzed with activity as technicians monitored various screens and equipment. Lieutenant Park stood at the main console, her face pale with concern. Sir, we've detected multiple objects approaching from the outer system, she reported. They're moving too fast to be merchant vessels, and they're not responding to our standard greeting protocols. Kang studied the display screen showing several blinking dots moving toward their planet. How many contacts? At least 12 large vessels, sir. Possibly more, following behind them. Their energy signatures don't match any known human ship designs. The captain felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He had hoped to never see a day like this, but his training kicked in automatically. Sound general quarters. Get all civilians to the emergency shelters, contact the planetary defense grid and have them power up all weapons. Alarms began wailing throughout the colony as people rushed to follow emergency procedures they had practiced but never expected to use. Kong watched families hurrying toward the reinforced shelters built into the hillsides around the settlement. Sir, Lieutenant Park called out, the unknown vessels are dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. Long-range scans show they're definitely not human in origin. Within minutes, the first wave of alien ships appeared in orbit above New Busan. The massive vessels blocked out portions of the sky as they positioned themselves around the planet. Kong had seen images of alien technology before, but witnessing it firsthand was different. These ships looked like predators circling their prey. Incoming transmission, announced Park. It's on all frequencies. Put it through, Kang ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the reptilian face of Commander Vextel. His yellow eyes stared down at the humans with obvious contempt. "Attention human colony," Vextel said in accented but clear English. "I am Commander Vextel of the Telvanni Empire. Your world is now under our control. Surrender immediately, and your people will be treated according to standard occupation protocols." Kong stepped forward so the alien commander could see him clearly. "This is Captain Kong Ji-wan, military commander of New Busan Colony. We are a peaceful settlement with no strategic value. What do you want from us?" Vextel's scaled face twisted into what might have been a smile. "Your world produces food that we require. Your people will work to maintain production under our supervision. Those who cooperate will live. Those who resist will not. I need time to discuss this with the civilian leadership," Kong replied, trying to buy time while his people prepared their defenses. "You have 1 hour," Vextel said. "After that, we will take the colony by force. I suggest you choose wisely, human." The transmission ended, leaving the communications center in tense silence. Kong looked around at his small team of officers and technicians. These were good people who had signed up to protect farmers and families, not to fight an alien invasion. "Lieutenant Park, send an emergency message to Sector Command. Use the quantum relay if necessary. Make sure they know what's happening here." "Yes, sir." Message sent. Kong walked to the tactical display showing the colony's defenses. They had 6 plasma cannon batteries, 2 missile launchers, and about 100 soldiers armed with standard infantry weapons. Against 12 alien warships, their chances looked hopeless. "Sergeant Lee, what's the status of our defensive positions?" "All weapon systems are online and manned, sir. I've deployed squads to each of the key positions around the colony perimeter." "But sir, if those alien ships have standard orbital bombardment capabilities..." "I know," Kang interrupted. "We can't stop them from destroying the colony if they choose to. But maybe we can make them think twice about the cost." The hour passed quickly as the human defenders made their final preparations. Kong spent the time visiting each defensive position, talking to his soldiers, and trying to project more confidence than he felt. These men and women trusted him to lead them through whatever was coming. When the deadline arrived, Vextel's face appeared on the screen again. "Have you reached a decision, Captain?" "We're prepared to discuss terms," Kang replied carefully. "But I need to know that you'll honor any agreement we make." Vextel laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "Humans and their need for guarantees. Very well, I will allow a small demonstration of our capabilities to help you understand your position." The transmission ended, and moments later, the sky lit up with energy beams from the alien ships. One of the outer defensive positions simply vanished in a flash of blue light, leaving only a smoking crater where 6 soldiers had been stationed. "That was our weakest weapon," Vextel announced when he reappeared on screen. "We have much more destructive tools available if needed. Do you still wish to discuss terms?" Kang felt rage building inside him, but he kept his voice steady. "I just murdered 6 of my soldiers who posed no threat to your ships. I eliminated a military target to demonstrate our superiority," Vextel corrected. "This is standard procedure. Would you prefer that we target civilian shelters next?" The threat was clear. Kang had no choice but to continue the pretense of negotiation while his people prepared for what was likely to be their final stand. "What exactly do you want from us?" Kang asked. "Complete surrender of all military forces. Your soldiers will lay down their weapons and submit to detention. Civilian leadership will be replaced by our appointed administrators. All agricultural production will be redirected to supply our forces." Kong nodded slowly, as if considering the terms. "I understand your position, but you have to understand mine. I have a responsibility to protect these people. I need some time to explain the situation to the civilian council." Vextel's eyes narrowed. "You already had your time. Human, are you attempting to delay our operations?" "I'm trying to save lives," Kong replied honestly, "both yours and ours." The alien commander seemed amused by this. "You speak as if you pose some threat to my forces." "Captain, your entire military consists of 100 primitive soldiers with outdated weapons. We have brought 800 of the galaxy's finest warriors equipped with technology your species cannot comprehend." "Numbers aren't everything," Kong said quietly. "Perhaps not," Vextel agreed, "but when the numbers are 8 to 1, and when our individual warriors are superior to yours in every measurable way, the outcome is not in doubt." Kong looked directly into the alien's yellow eyes. "You might be surprised by what humans can accomplish when protecting their homes and families." Vextel's laugh was even harsher this time. "Ah yes, we have read your military files. Full of impossible stories about heroic soldiers performing miraculous feats. Do you actually believe those fairy tales, Captain?" "Everword," Kang replied. Without hesitation. "Then you are even more foolish than I thought," Vextel said. "You have 10 more minutes to surrender. After that, we will demonstrate the difference between human myths and alien reality." The screen went dark, leaving Kong alone with his thoughts and his impossible choices. Outside, he could see alien dropships beginning to descend through the atmosphere like falling stars. Soon, the real test would begin. He picked up his rifle and checked the ammunition one final time. Whatever happened next, the aliens would learn that human stories weren't myths at all. They were promises. The alien dropships landed like metal thunderbolts across the colony's outer perimeter. Each ship disgorged dozens of heavily armed warriors who moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. Their advanced weapons hummed with deadly energy as they advanced toward the human defensive positions. Captain Kang Ji-won watched from the colony's command center as his soldiers opened fire on the approaching aliens. The humans fought bravely, but their chemical projectile weapons seemed almost primitive compared to the energy beams that answered back. Within minutes, 3 more defensive positions had been overrun. "Sir, we're losing ground, fast," reported Sergeant Lee Min-ho through the radio. "These aliens are tougher than anything in our training manuals. Our bullets barely slow them down." Kong gripped his radio tighter. "Fall back to secondary positions. Make them pay for every meter, but don't waste lives on hopeless stands." As the human forces retreated toward the colony center, something unexpected began to happen. Reports started coming in that confused both the human defenders and their alien attackers. "Command, this is Corporal Kim Jae-in at Checkpoint 7, came a breathless voice over the radio. "We just took heavy casualties, but Lee Sung-ho is still fighting?" "Sir, he's been shot at least 4 times, but he won't go down." Kong frowned. "Get him to medical immediately." "Sir, you don't understand. He's not just staying conscious. He's fighting harder than before. It's like the wounds made him angry instead of weak." Similar reports began flooding in from across the battlefield. Human soldiers who should have been incapacitated by their injuries continued fighting with desperate intensity. Private Nam Yuzhin dragged ammunition to her squad for 2 hours, despite a shattered leg bone. Manek Shin-yemin treated wounded soldiers in the middle of firefights, seemingly oblivious to the energy beams flashing around him. But the most remarkable change occurred in the colony's security office, where a man named Yoon Seok-min had been quietly reviewing defensive plans. At 52 years old, Yoon served as the colony's head of security, a job that mostly involved settling disputes between farmers and investigating minor thefts. Most colonists knew him as a polite, soft-spoken man who preferred paperwork to conflict. What they didn't know was that Yoon Seok-min had another name. During humanity's war against the rogue artificial intelligences that had nearly destroyed Earth, military records listed him as Sergeant Major Yoon Seok-min, Khalsan Silent Storm. His classified file contained details of operations that remained secret 20 years after the war's end. When the first alien energy beam struck the colony, something awakened inside Yoon that had been sleeping for 2 decades. His hand stopped shaking as he reached for the weapons locker he had hoped never to open again. Inside lay equipment that bore no resemblance to standard colonial security gear. The rifle was matte black, worn smooth by countless missions. The armor was scarred but functional, designed for warfare that went beyond normal human endurance. Most important was the small tactical computer that connected to sensors hidden throughout the colony. During peacetime, these sensors monitored crop yields and weather patterns. In wartime, they became the nervous system of a deadly hunting ground. Yoon suited up with movements that muscle memory had preserved perfectly. Each piece of equipment found its proper place as if he had worn it yesterday instead of 20 years ago. When he was finished, the mild-mannered security chief had vanished, replaced by something that had once made artificial intelligences recalculate their probability matrices. Outside, the alien advance continued with mechanical precision. Commander Vextel monitored the battle from his command ship, pleased by the progress. His forces had secured nearly half the colony with minimal casualties. The human resistance was crumbling, exactly as predicted. "Sir," reported one of his subordinates, "we're receiving some unusual field reports from our ground units." "What kind of reports?" Vextel asked, without looking up from his tactical display. "Several squads report that human soldiers are continuing to fight after taking wounds that should be fatal. Our medical specialists say this should be impossible." Vextel dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. "Battle stress causes many illusions. Our warriors are simply surprised by human stubbornness. Continue the advance." But as the hours passed, the reports became harder to ignore. Alien squads found themselves pinned down by human defenders who seemed to feel no pain and accept no defeat. Wounded humans crawled through enemy fire to deliver ammunition to their comrades. Medics performed surgery in the middle of combat zones while explosions rocked the ground around them. Most disturbing of all were the reports about equipment failures. Alien weapons that had functioned perfectly for years suddenly jammed at crucial moments. Communication systems delivered static instead of orders. Even their advanced sensors began providing false readings, showing movement where nothing should exist. Deep in the colony's maintenance tunnels, Yoon Seok-min moved through familiar darkness. The tunnels connected every major building in the settlement, designed as emergency routes during natural disasters. Now they served a different purpose. allowing him to appear anywhere in the colony without crossing open ground. His tactical computer displayed real-time information from sensors throughout the area. Every alien position showed clearly on his screen, along with movement patterns and weapon signatures. During the AI war, this kind of information advantage had allowed him to eliminate entire enemy formations. Single-handedly. The first alien patrol never knew what hit them. One moment they were advancing down a clear corridor. The next moment, 3 of their number were down, and their equipment was sparking with electrical damage. Their remaining members spun in circles, looking for an enemy who had already vanished. Back into the tunnels. Control. This is Ground Team 7, the patrol leader reported nervously. We've encountered some kind of trap. 3 casualties. Cause unknown. Describe the engagement, came the reply from the alien command ship. There was no engagement, sir. Our point man simply collapsed. Then the others fell in rapid succession. We detected no enemy fire, no explosions, nothing on our sensors. Vextel leaned forward in his command chair. What is the status of your casualties? Dead, sir. Precise wounds to vital areas. Whoever did this knew exactly where to strike for maximum effectiveness. For the first time since the invasion began, Vextel felt a flicker of uncertainty. His forces were equipped with the best armor in the galaxy. Their vital areas were protected against most known weapons. Whatever had killed those soldiers required knowledge of alien anatomy that humans supposedly didn't possess. Increase patrol strength to squad level, he ordered. No unit moves alone. But increasing patrol strength only provided more targets for an enemy who struck without warning and vanished without trace. Over the next 2 hours, 6 more alien units reported similar attacks. Each time, several aliens would simply drop dead from precisely placed wounds while their comrades detected no enemy presence. Meanwhile, human resistance across the colony began to stiffen in ways that defied alien understanding. Soldiers who had been retreating suddenly stood their ground and fought with renewed determination. Wounded defenders refused medical evacuation, insisting they could still fight. Even civilians began emerging from shelters to help move ammunition and supplies to the front lines. Captain Kong watched this transformation with amazement and growing hope. His colonists were displaying the same impossible endurance that had filled the military stories the aliens had mocked. Every myth about human determination seemed to be proving itself true in the crucible of actual combat. But it was the mysterious elimination of alien patrols that gave him real hope. Someone was out there turning the tide of battle, and Kong had a growing suspicion about who that someone might be. He remembered the classified file he had seen when Yoon Seokman first applied for the security position. Most of the details had been redacted, but the parts he could read suggested that New Basan's quiet security chief had once been something far more dangerous. As night fell over the colony, the alien advance ground to a halt for the first time since the invasion began. What should have been an easy conquest was turning into something else entirely. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were fighting back in ways that challenged everything the aliens thought they knew about warfare. In his command ship, Vextel stared at casualty reports that made no sense. His forces still outnumbered the humans, but their advantage was shrinking with every passing hour. More troubling were the psychological reports from his ground commanders. Elite warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds were beginning to show signs of fear. The humans weren't fighting like the weak creatures from the intelligence files, they were fighting like the impossible heroes from those mythical stories. And somewhere in the colony, a legend was awakening that would teach the aliens the true meaning of terror. The second day of the invasion began with alien forces discovering that their overnight positions had been compromised. 3 guard posts had been eliminated during the night, their occupants found dead with the same precise wounds that left no trace of the attacker. Equipment that had been functional at sunset now sparked with mysterious electrical damage. Commander Vextel reviewed the night's reports with growing frustration. His ground forces controlled most of the colony's outer areas, but they were paying a price that made no sense according to their pre-invasion calculations. Sir, reported his intelligence officer, we've identified the human responsible for our casualties. Surveillance footage shows a single individual moving through areas where our patrols were eliminated. The main screen displayed grainy images of a figure in dark armor moving through shadows with fluid precision. The person's face was hidden, but their movements spoke of decades of combat experience. One human, Vextel asked incredulously. Our casualties are being inflicted by one human. The evidence suggests so, sir. Analysis of the attacks shows consistent patterns that indicate a single operator with extensive knowledge of our equipment and anatomy. Vextel studied the images more closely. Something about the figure's movements seemed familiar, as if he had seen similar tactics before. But that was impossible. No human should possess the kind of training displayed in these recordings. Double the guard rotations, he ordered. Institute random pattern changes every hour. And find this human ghost before he kills more of our soldiers. But Yoon Seokman had spent 20 years studying alien combat doctrine. The tactics that Vextel considered innovative were techniques that Yoon had encountered during the AI war. When he had fought enemies who could predict human behavior with mathematical precision, randomness was useful against humans, but it was predictable to someone who understood the mathematics behind it. As the alien forces adjusted their patrol patterns, Yoon adapted his approach. Instead of direct elimination, he began psychological warfare that struck at something more fundamental than alien confidence. He started leaving messages. The first message appeared spray-painted on the wall of an alien command post in perfect Korthak script. "Your gods cannot hear you here." The words were written in a dialect so ancient that only scholars knew its proper pronunciation. Yet somehow a human had used it correctly. The second message, left at another position, was in the insectoid clicking language. 800 becomes 700. 700 becomes 600. When does it end? This message was accompanied by a small pile of alien equipment tags, each one taken from a fallen soldier. By the third message, alien morale began to crack. Warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves checking shadows and jumping at unexpected sounds. The psychological impact was exactly what Yoon intended. Fear was a weapon that multiplied itself, spreading from soldier to soldier like a virus. Meanwhile, the human defenders continued displaying impossible endurance. Corporal Lee Sung-ho had been fighting for 36 hours straight despite wounds that should have killed him twice over. Each time alien medics examined human casualties, they found injuries that defied their understanding of biology. "How are they still fighting?" demanded Grixton, the insectoid lieutenant. "During a field briefing, we've inflicted enough damage to stop a Korthak's heavy assault unit, but these humans keep coming." Captain Kong monitored alien communications. From his command center, listening to their growing confusion and fear, the translations provided by his communication specialists revealed cracks forming in alien confidence. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Park, "we're intercepting increasing chatter about something they call the shadow human. Their casualty reports mention equipment failures, impossible attacks, and psychological warfare that's affecting unit cohesion." Kong nodded grimly. He had finally figured out who was responsible for the aliens mounting casualties. Yoon Seokman's personnel file might have been classified, but certain details were becoming clear. The colony's quiet security chief was systematically dismantling an invasion force using skills that shouldn't exist in peacetime. As the day progressed, alien tactics became increasingly desperate. They began using heavier weapons, calling in airstrikes on positions where they suspected the mysterious human might be hiding. But orbital bombardment was useless against an enemy who could predict their targeting priorities and relocate before the weapons fired. Yoon had learned to read alien tactical doctrine like a book during his years of classified operations. Every species in the galaxy followed certain mathematical principles when conducting warfare. Humans were unique because they could abandon logic when necessary, making decisions based on intuition, an instinct that no algorithm could predict. The afternoon brought new horrors for the alien forces. Patrols began finding their own equipment turned against them. Weapons that had been secured in locked armories appeared at defensive positions, firing alien ammunition at alien targets. Communication gear broadcast human messages on frequencies that should have been encrypted. "This is impossible," Vextel raged as he reviewed the latest reports. "Security protocols that took our best scientists years to develop are being bypassed by primitive humans." His science officer, a crystalline being whose name translated roughly as Bright Edge of Wisdom, offered a disturbing analysis. "Commander, these humans are not behaving according to our psychological models. They should have broken under the pressure hours ago, but instead they appear to be growing stronger." Growing stronger? How? Wounded humans are fighting with increased aggression rather than decreased capability. Their unit cohesion improves under stress instead of degrading. Most significantly, they appear to be adapting to our tactics faster than our computers can process new strategies. Vextal slammed his fist against his command chair. "They're just humans. Weak, primitive, delusional humans who tell themselves fairy tales about impossible heroes." "Sir," Bright Edge of Wisdom said carefully, "what if those stories aren't fairy tales?" The question hung in the air like poison gas. Around the command center, alien officers shifted uncomfortably as they considered the implications. Their entire invasion plan had been based on the assumption that human military records were exaggerated propaganda. But what if they weren't? As evening approached, Yoon Seokman prepared for his most ambitious operation yet. The alien command structure was becoming predictable in its desperation, rotating commanders and shifting tactical approaches with mechanical regularity. It was time to demonstrate that humans could do more than simply endure punishment. They could deliver it as well. The target was an alien supply depot that supported 3 different combat units. Intelligence gathered from his surveillance network showed that the facility contained enough ammunition and equipment to sustain alien operations for weeks. More importantly, it was defended by a full company of their best soldiers, making it a symbol of alien military superiority. Yoon approached the facility through storm drains that connected to the colony's water treatment system. His tactical computer displayed real-time positions of every guard, updated by sensors that the aliens hadn't even detected. 2 decades of technological advancement since the AI war had given him tools that made his old equipment seem primitive by comparison. The assault began at exactly midnight, when alien attention cycles were at their lowest point. The first guards died without knowing they had been attacked. Their advanced sensors detecting nothing as precisely aimed projectiles found gaps in their armor. Within minutes, half the facility's security force had been eliminated by an enemy they couldn't see, hear, or track. The remaining aliens activated emergency protocols, calling for reinforcements while trying to establish a defensive perimeter. But they were fighting an opponent who had helped write the manual on asymmetric warfare against technologically superior enemies. Yoon moved through the facility like a force of nature, appearing wherever alien defenses were weakest and vanishing. Before counterattacks could develop, alien weapons turned against their owners as security systems were compromised from within. Emergency lights failed at crucial moments, plunging defenders into darkness while their enemy operated with perfect situational awareness. By dawn, the supply depot was a smoking ruin. More importantly, 3 companies of alien soldiers had lost their logistical support, forcing them to retreat or face starvation. The message was clear: humans could strike anywhere, anytime, against any target they chose. Commander Vextel stared at the smoking wreckage through his ship's sensors, finally beginning to understand the magnitude of his error. The stories his forces had mocked weren't myths at all. They were warnings about what humans became when pushed beyond their limits. For the first time in his military career, Vextel felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear of an enemy. The humans weren't just defending their colony. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson about the difference between strength and power, between technology and determination, between conquest and survival. And somewhere in the ruins of his invasion plan, a legend was proving that human myths were simply promises waiting to be kept. The third day of what was supposed to be a simple conquest began with Commander Vextel facing the unthinkable. His invasion force of 800 elite warriors had been reduced to fewer than 400 effective soldiers. Half of his remaining forces were showing signs of combat fatigue and psychological stress that military medicine couldn't treat. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving urgent requests for evacuation from 6 different ground units. They claim they're being hunted by something that defies all tactical analysis." Vextel reviewed the morning's intelligence reports with growing disbelief. The mysterious human operative had struck 3 more positions during the night, each attack more devastating than the last. Worse still, the attack showed clear signs of escalation. This wasn't random violence or desperate defense. This was systematic destruction carried out by someone who understood exactly how to break an occupying force. "Show me the latest surveillance footage," he ordered. The main screen displayed images captured by surviving security cameras. A dark figure moved through alien positions within human precision, striking at weak points that shouldn't have been visible to human sensors. The attacker seemed to know exactly where every alien would be before they knew it themselves. "Computer analysis suggests this individual has access to real-time tactical information about our force dispositions," reported the intelligence officer. "The accuracy of his predictions is beyond normal human capability." Vextel leaned forward, studying the footage more carefully. Something about the figure's movement patterns triggered a memory from his military academy training. He had seen similar tactics before, in classified recordings from humanity's war against the rogue artificial intelligences. "Pull up the historical files on human military operations during their AI conflict," he ordered. The display changed to show archived footage from 20 years earlier. Vextel watched human soldiers operating against machine enemies who possessed overwhelming technological superiority. The tactics were similar, but there was something more. These humans fought with a coldness that seemed almost inhuman, as if they had learned to think like their artificial enemies while retaining human unpredictability. "Cross-reference our current surveillance with these historical patterns," Vextel commanded. The computer analysis took several minutes to complete. When the results appeared, they confirmed Vextel's worst fears. The tactical signatures were nearly identical. Somehow, a human who had fought in that legendary conflict was now applying those same skills against alien invaders. "This is impossible," muttered Grixton, who had joined the command briefing. "Our intelligence indicated that all human veterans from that war were either dead or retired to non-combat positions." "Intelligence can be wrong," Vextel replied grimly. "And apparently, retirement doesn't always mean what we think it means." On the ground, alien forces were discovering that their hunter had become their hunted. Patrols sent to secure areas found themselves walking into carefully prepared ambushes. Supply convoys disappeared entirely, their crews found days later, with the same precise wounds that had become the Phantom's signature. Most disturbing were the messages that began appearing with increasing frequency. Each one demonstrated knowledge of alien culture and psychology that should have been impossible for any human to possess. The latest message, written in Energy Being Light script, simply read, "You came here to teach us about reality." Class is now in session. Yoon Seokmin moved through the colony like a ghost, with perfect memory of every building, tunnel, and hiding place. 20 years of peaceful security work had given him knowledge of the settlement that surpassed even the original architects. Every ventilation shaft, maintenance tunnel, and emergency exit had been mapped and memorized. His tactical computer provided real-time updates on alien positions through sensors that had been disguised as ordinary colonial infrastructure. The aliens were looking for military surveillance equipment, not agricultural monitoring systems that had been quietly repurposed for warfare. The morning's target was particularly important. An alien command post had been established in the colony's main school, chosen because its thick walls and central location made it ideal for coordinating ground operations. More importantly, it contained the communication equipment that allowed ground forces to coordinate with their orbiting ships. Yoon approached the school through underground tunnels that connected to the building's basement. His entry point was a maintenance hatch that led directly to the facility's power distribution system. 20 years earlier, he had helped design these systems with exactly this kind of contingency in mind. The assault began with a complete power failure that plunged the command post into darkness. Emergency lighting activated automatically, but those systems had been compromised hours earlier. Alien soldiers found themselves operating in near-total darkness while their enemy moved with perfect knowledge of the terrain. The first casualties occurred at the building's communication center, where alien operators desperately tried to re-establish contact with their ships. They died at their stations, never knowing that their killer had been watching them through hidden cameras for hours. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike, Yoon moved through the school's corridors, like a student who had never forgotten the way to class. Every classroom became a potential ambush point, every doorway a place where aliens might find death waiting in the shadows. The building's public address system began broadcasting messages in various alien languages, each one precisely calculated to increase fear and confusion. "You are alone," the speakers announced in Corthax. "Your ships cannot help you. Your weapons cannot save you. Your gods have abandoned you to human judgment." Alien soldiers fired at speakers, but the messages continued from hidden backup systems. Some tried to flee the building, only to discover that the exits had been sealed from the outside. Others attempted to establish defensive positions, but found that their chosen locations had been anticipated and prepared for. Commander Vextal watched the assault through orbital surveillance, helpless to intervene without risking the destruction of his own forces through friendly fire. The school had become a death trap designed by someone who understood both human architecture and alien psychology with terrifying precision. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're losing contact with the ground command post." The last transmission indicated they were under attack by what they described as the demon in the darkness. "How many attackers?" Vextal asked, though he already knew the answer. "Unknown, sir. Possibly one. Definitely not more than 3 based on the pattern of casualties." Vextal closed his eyes and tried to process the impossible reality. A single human operative was systematically destroying his invasion force using tactics that shouldn't exist outside of theoretical military studies. Worse still, the psychological impact was spreading beyond the immediate area of operations. "Sir," reported another officer, "we're receiving requests for orbital bombardment from multiple ground units. They want us to level entire sections of the colony to eliminate the threat." "Absolutely not," Vextal replied. "We need this colony intact for agricultural production. Besides, orbital bombardment would only prove that we can't handle a single human soldier." But even as he spoke, Vextal knew that options were running out. His forces were being systematically eliminated by an enemy who seemed to possess supernatural knowledge of their capabilities and weaknesses. The invasion that was supposed to demonstrate alien superiority was becoming a lesson in human lethality. The school operation concluded with complete alien casualties and 0 human losses. The building's communication equipment had been captured intact, providing Yoon with access to alien tactical networks that revealed the positions and plans of every remaining enemy unit. But more importantly, the psychological impact was complete. Alien soldiers who had arrived 3 days earlier with absolute confidence in their superiority now spoke in whispers about the shadow that hunted them. Some units refused to conduct patrols. Others demanded evacuation to their ships, claiming that the colony was cursed. Yoon Seokmin sat in the captured command center, reviewing alien tactical data with the same calm precision he had once applied to artificial intelligence battle networks. The aliens were predictable in their desperation, following patterns that made their next moves obvious to someone who understood the mathematics of military psychology. Outside, Captain Kong's forces had begun advancing from their defensive positions, reclaiming territory that had been lost during the initial invasion. Human morale soared as word spread about their mysterious protector who struck fear into alien hearts. The stories that aliens had mocked were proving themselves true in the most literal way. Possible. Commander Vextal stared at casualty reports that defied every principle of modern warfare. His technologically superior forces were being defeated by a species that supposedly relied on primitive weapons and fictional heroes. The myths were real, the legends were true, and somewhere in the colony below, a human warrior was teaching the galaxy what terror really meant. The fourth day of the invasion dawned with fewer than 200 alien soldiers remaining on the surface of New Busan. Commander Vextal faced a choice that no military commander in galactic history had ever confronted: admit defeat to a single human operative, or watch his entire force be systematically eliminated by an enemy that defied every known principle of warfare. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "overnight casualties include the entire northern perimeter force and both reserve units. Based on current elimination rates, we will have no effective ground forces within 18 hours. Vextal studied the holographic display showing his remaining positions. Each one was highlighted in red, indicating high probability of attack. The human operative seemed to know exactly where every alien soldier was located, while remaining completely invisible to their sensors. "What about our orbital assets?" he asked desperately. "Can we provide close air support to our remaining forces?" "Negative, sir. The enemy has acquired our communication codes and is jamming our coordination frequencies. Any air support would be as likely to hit our own troops as the target." The commander realized that he was facing something unprecedented in military history. A single opponent had not only stopped his invasion but was actively dismantling it, piece by piece. The psychological reports from his surviving troops painted a picture of complete moral collapse. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's coming from the human operative." Vex straightened in his command chair. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed a figure in dark armor, seated in what appeared to be an alien command center. The human's face was hidden behind a tactical mask, but his voice carried the quiet authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "Commander Vextal," the figure said in perfect Korvax, "I am Sergeant Major UNC Osiman, formerly of the Terran Defense Force, currently serving as Security Chief for New Busan Colony." Vextal leaned forward, finally able to put a name to his tormentor. "You're the one who has been eliminating my forces." "I am," Yoon replied calmly. "I wanted to speak with you before we conclude this operation." "Conclude?" Vextal's voice cracked slightly. "You speak as if you have already won." Yoon's masked face tilted slightly, as if considering an obvious fact. "Haven't I? Your invasion force has been reduced by 75%. Your remaining troops are demoralized and scattered. Your supply lines have been severed and your communication networks compromised. By any reasonable military standard, this operation ended yesterday." The alien commander felt rage building inside him, but also something else, a grudging respect for an opponent who had outmaneuvered him at every turn. "How?" he demanded. "How did one human accomplish what should have been impossible?" Yoon was quiet for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "You made a fundamental error in your intelligence analysis, Commander. You assumed that our military records were exaggerated fiction designed to boost morale. You treated our stories of impossible heroism as myths rather than historical documentation." "Those stories are impossible," Vextal protested. "No creature can perform the feats described in your military files." "You're right," Yoon agreed. "Under normal circumstances, those feats would be impossible. But you failed to understand what makes humans unique among galactic species. We don't accept limitations as permanent conditions. We treat them as problems to be solved." The human operative stood and walked to a window that overlooked the colony. "Every story you mocked was real, Commander. Park Jin-ho did hold off a regiment for 3 days. Lee Dong-yoon did fight for 18 hours with mortal wounds. Kim Min-soo did carry wounded soldiers through 30 miles of enemy territory. These weren't exaggerations, they were examples of what humans become when everything we care about is threatened." Vextal watched the figure in the screen, beginning to understand the magnitude of his miscalculation. "You're saying that humans can exceed their normal capabilities under extreme stress." "I'm saying that humans don't have normal capabilities," Yoon corrected. "We have baseline performance levels that we maintain during peacetime, but when survival is at stake, when our families and homes are threatened, we access reserves that other species apparently don't possess." The sergeant major turned back to face the camera. "During our war against the artificial intelligences, I learned to fight enemies that were faster, stronger, and smarter than any biological creature should be. I developed tactics that worked against opponents who could predict human behavior with mathematical precision. The skills I used against your forces were developed 20 years ago, fighting machines that made your technology look primitive." Vex felt something cold settle in his stomach. "The AI war. You're one of the veterans from that conflict. I am, and I'm not unique, Commander. There are thousands of humans throughout the galaxy who learn to fight impossible enemies and win. We're in colonies, trading posts, exploration vessels, and diplomatic missions. Most of us hope never to use our skills again. But when we're forced to, we remember everything. The alien commander studied the human's posture and voice, recognizing the confidence of someone who had faced extinction and survived. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to understand something before you report back to your superiors," Yoon said. "This colony is defended by 100 regular soldiers, 50,000 civilians, and 1 retired veteran. You brought 800 of your finest warriors and couldn't defeat us. Ask yourself why that happened." Vextel already knew the answer, but hearing it spoken aloud was different. "Because you don't fight like other species." "Exactly. We don't fight for territory or resources or political advantage. We fight for survival, for family, for the right to exist. When you threaten those things, you don't encounter normal humans. You encounter something that has evolved beyond normal limitations." The transmission continued for several more minutes as Yoon explained exactly how he had defeated an invasion force 8 times larger than the defending garrison. Every tactic had been calculated to exploit alien expectations about human capabilities. Every psychological warfare technique had been designed to turn alien technological advantages into weaknesses. "I'm offering you a choice," Commander Yoon concluded. "You can continue this operation and lose the rest of your forces, or you can withdraw and report to your government that human colonies are defended by more than just regular soldiers. Some of us are defended by people who have learned to turn myths into reality." Vextel looked around his command center at officers who had been listening to every word. Their faces showed the same mixture of fear and respect that he felt. The human wasn't boasting or threatening. He was simply explaining facts that changed everything the aliens thought they knew about warfare. "If I withdraw," Vextel said carefully, "how do I know you won't attack my ships?" "Because I'm not a conqueror, Commander. I'm a protector. Your ships pose no threat to this colony once your ground forces are gone. I have no interest in pursuing you beyond our borders." The alien commander made his decision. "Ground forces, prepare for immediate evacuation. All units return to designated pickup points for extraction." Over the next few hours, the remaining alien forces withdrew from New Busan under the watchful eyes of human defenders. There were no final battles, no desperate last stands. The aliens simply admitted defeat and left, carrying with them a story that would spread throughout the galaxy. Captain Kong met Yoon Seokmin at the colony's main entrance as the last alien transport departed. The security chief had removed his tactical gear and once again looked like a mild-mannered administrator rather than a legendary warrior. "Thank you," Kong said simply. Yoon nodded and looked up at the alien ships disappearing into hyperspace. "They'll be back eventually. Maybe not here, maybe not these particular aliens, but others will come. Next time, we'll be ready." "Will we need to be ready for something like this again?" Yoon was quiet for a long moment, watching the sky return to its normal blue. The galaxy is full of species who think they understand human limitations. Most of them are wrong. Our job is to make sure they learn the truth before it's too late for everyone involved. Within weeks, the story of New Busan spread throughout alien space networks. The tale grew in the telling, as stories often do, but the core facts remained unchanged. A single human veteran had defeated an invasion force 8 times larger than the defending garrison. The myths that aliens had mocked had proven to be historical records. Commander Vextel's report to the Telvanni High Command became required reading at military academies across 3 sectors. The document was classified at the highest levels, but copies leaked to other species who were planning their own expeditions into human space. The message was clear: humans were not the weak, storytelling creatures that early intelligence had suggested. On New Busan, life gradually returned to normal. Farmers went back to their fields, children returned to school, and families rebuilt what had been damaged during the brief but intense conflict. The only lasting change was in how the colonists looked at their quiet security chief. Yoon Seokmin continued his daily rounds, checking locks and investigating minor disputes with the same patient professionalism he had always shown. But now everyone knew that beneath the mild exterior lived something that had once made artificial intelligences recalculate their probability matrices, and alien commanders question their understanding of warfare. The colony's children began asking him to tell stories about the invasion, but Yoon always declined politely. He had never been comfortable with attention, even during his military service. The stories would be told by others, growing larger and more dramatic with each retelling. That was how legends were born. Captain Kong submitted his own report to Sector Command, describing how human determination had overcome impossible odds. The document joined thousands of similar reports in classified archives, each one documenting moments when ordinary humans had accomplished extraordinary things. Together, they formed a library of proof that human myths were simply promises waiting to be kept. Years later, when alien species gathered to discuss human colonies and whether they were worth the risk of conquest, they would speak in whispers about New Busan. The story served as a warning that penetrated even the most aggressive military planning. Humans were most dangerous when they appeared weakest, and their stories were not fiction but historical fact. The myth had become legend, and the legend had become a lesson that echoed across the galaxy. When humans told stories about impossible heroes who refused to accept defeat, they weren't engaging in fantasy. They were teaching anyone who would listen about the difference between what humans were and what humans could become when everything they loved was threatened. And in a small security office on a farming world, a man named Yoon Seokman continued his quiet work, hoping never again to prove that human legends were real, but knowing that if the need arose, he would stand ready to teach another generation of enemies that myths and reality were the same thing when spoken by human voices.